Dawnafe Whitesinger, County Supervisor for District 5, and we're glad to have you here with us for the month of February. And I can't believe it's already February. I think, December seems like a long memory ago, which is kind of crazy. But today we have a special show for you. We have a couple special guests who are going to be talking to us. We've talked about domestic violence in the past, and today we're going to talk a little bit about teen violence or teen domestic violence and what that looks like. And so I'll give both of you the opportunity to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about you and what it is you do. And we'll start with Roxanne from the county.
I'm Roxanne Padilla, and I'm the Victim Services Manager at the Navajo County Attorney's Office. I'm also the Navajo County Victim Compensation Coordinator. I do a lot of outreach, and I assist with different projects throughout the county, like the Victims' Rights Symposium. My main job is to help victims who are going to be needing services through the courtroom process. And I'm a criminal justice advocate, and I help with compensation for their financial losses and things like that.
Great. Well, thank you, Roxanne, and we're glad that you can be here today. And we also have another special guest with us, Bobbi Sudberry.
Yes, Bobbi Sudberry, and I am the Executive Director and co-founder of Kaity's Way, an Arizona-based organization where we educate on the importance of healthy relationships and bring awareness to the issue of teen dating violence.
Great. Well, thank you. As you can tell, it's a sensitive subject, but certainly an important subject that we should be cognizant of. And as family members or parent members or grandmothers, grandparents, whatever member you might play in a young person's life, and just kind of paying attention to maybe some of those warning signs. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do, Bobbi, can you just tell us a little bit about your organization for people who might not be familiar?
Well, our organization was formed, my husband and I co-founded it in honor of our daughter, Caitlin Marie Sudberry, because unfortunately, a little over 8 years ago, she was the victim of teen dating violence in the worst imaginable way. And she had a boyfriend for about a year, that the relationship had become abusive, and she ended that relationship, but unfortunately, a month after ending that relationship, he took her life and then took his own. So we had a murder-suicide, and these were two 17-year-old kids that unfortunately are now gone. And we just felt like there was a definite need in the community to understand the importance of healthy relationships. And so we take our daughter's story and we utilize that to show people, how quickly an abusive relationship can spin out of control. And we also, on a more personal level, worked with the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, as well as Senator Payton, to create what is known as Kaity's Law, where those in dating relationships now have protection under the law, and it's just added to the domestic violence statutes.
Well, I'm sure, after such a horrific loss like that, you flounder in trying to figure out, what are the next steps, and finding your next steps through creating this organization and helping other families is certainly a commendable thing, and probably a very challenging thing I guess at some points in it. And as a parent or somebody who's in the community and looking at teen violence, what are some of those warning signs that you might give to parents and looking for?
Well, with parents, if you notice your child's behavior changing, they become easily agitated, or maybe they become withdrawn, or at times they get hysterical over things, with regards to the person that they're dating. If the person that they're dating is trying to, make sure that they're with them all the time, not giving them a break or anything. Let's see, grades dropping. Now that can, be indicative of a lot of things, but teen dating violence is one of them. Having problems in a relationship is one of them. The person that they're with, if that person's being abusive and yelling at them over the phone or texting them constantly. Texting is really huge these days. And then utilizing social media in some cases to, get to the victim and whatnot. There's, and but I guess the key thing is just really look at your child and, have they gone from being somebody that does all kinds of extracurricular activities to doing nothing else but being on the phone or being with that other person? Have their friends dropped off? Are they no longer friends with certain people anymore? And is the abuser the reason for that? Because a lot of times they will, try to isolate the victim. Actually, that's their end goal, is to isolate the victim away from family and friends.
Right. And if a parent or someone were to see some of these warning signs, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, definitely gently try to have the discussion with them. Be a trusted adult. Young people, we've asked them after doing presentations and workshops with them, what is it that we can do as adults to help you? And the number one thing is they want to be heard. They want to be heard, and they want that trusted adult, but also remain calm. And I know that's not an easy thing to do. You love your child, and if somebody's hurting your child, of course, the first reaction you want to do is you want to fix it. Well, that can be very mortifying for a teen, And so, you have the conversation, you talk to them about it, and you include them in the solution to the problem. Ask them, what do you think we need to do to fix this? What do you think? How can I help you? Basically, let them take the lead on it, because they know that person. And I would say continue to speak with them, continue to talk to them, continue to ask them questions. If they start saying, look, I don't want to talk about this anymore or anything, okay, back off for a minute, and all that. But, reach out to people like Roxanne. Advocates are paramount in any situation like this. They know, they understand, and they can talk you through it and help you see things. Because when you are a parent, in the midst of that, you're in the forest, so you cannot see the trees. And that's exactly where we found ourselves. So, having that person, an advocate or somebody else that is knowledgeable in this area to talk to help you know what next steps you should consider, or even reach out to a family member that's around the same age, maybe a cousin, somebody they're close to, a sibling or whatever, and ask them to maybe start talking to them. Mm-hmm. But really pull others in.
I think it can be challenging for teens to want to disclose that information to their parents. I mean, some of the time they might feel like either they're doing something wrong, or those parents tend to be the system of punishment in some situations. So having that outside resource available to them, they might be more open and willing to engage in that conversation, along with the assistance of an advocate, help give the parents information on how to deal with the situation, because nobody is really just going to know, and every situation is kind of unique. There are definitely similarities, but there's uniqueness in every situation, and parents as well as the teens need that hand-holding to get that teen through that situation.
I think, it kind of parallels to conversations we've had in the past about domestic violence, and the idea of maybe being trapped. Maybe the young woman or a young lady or a young man feels like they might be in a situation that they can't get out of, or they don't know how to. Mm-hmm. And so reaching out to some of those organizations like yourself, maybe. And so if somebody wanted to reach out, what would you recommend they do?
Well, we are definitely a resource, and I work at the Navajo County Attorney's Office, and I call myself the hub of victim services, which means if I can't help you with your immediate needs, I can try to find somebody who will. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely always an option. We also have 2 local shelters in Navajo County that aren't on the reservation area. One is the Alice's Place in Winslow, and they are a very good resource for people in the north part of the county. We also have the White Mountain Safe House down here in the Pine Top area, and they have specialists that can help parents and teens through domestic violence as well. There's a Bobbi in Chinle that is also a domestic violence shelter and organization that helps teen youth, and we also have state agencies such as Kaity's Way and ACE's DV, or the Arizona's Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, organizations like that. So if there's something that we cannot help you with, you can always contact our office, and we'll make sure that that person gets the help that they need.
So in understanding that there are so many resources or several resources available in our county, is it something that maybe not prevalent, but something that we certainly should be concerned of, and maybe something that parents maybe they are not open to or privy to, or it just seems something that's prevalent, and certainly if we're having a conversation about it and something that we're bringing to the concern of the public, and not something that we're generally talking about. And I don't know what those numbers are like. When we talked a little bit about that, what does the data look like? Do you have an idea of what that looks like for our county?
I know nationally, 1 in 10 teens have reported being physically abused in a relationship. Now that doesn't take into consideration, domestic violence isn't just physical abuse. You have emotional abuse, you have sexual abuse. This is just physical violence alone. And the data is relatively new. They've only been gathering that specific information on a national level since 1999. You think that really isn't a very long time. So we don't have a good understanding of this, and that is only for teens who actually disclose. I'm sure it's happening in the same for adult domestic violence, happening to a larger capacity than what people are admitting to. I do know that it is occurring. It occurs here in Navajo County. Last year, Bobbi, she participated in a youth leadership workshop, and this was the specific topic that we presented on. And we did a poster video contest, and I go around to the local schools and I get teens to participate in this. And I had a teen, after doing a presentation, come to me and tell me they weren't the victim, but they know for a fact that a friend was, and assist and ask for help. And that was at our local school. They heard me talk about it. They really didn't even connect the dots, and they aren't educated on it. They need to have education regarding it. And once they were connecting the dots, they then felt that their friend was at risk and reached out for our help. So it is here. It's relevant here, yeah.
And you bring up a good point. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Just about maybe the misunderstanding of what that abuse might look like, if it's emotional or verbal or sexual. Sometimes that you give discredit to it and say, no, that I'm in a healthy relationship. And so what is your familiarity, I guess, when you talk about that subject and you talk with a lot of teens? I know you go out to the public and go and work with high school students. What does that look like?
When we go out, we definitely take them down the road of an abusive relationship so that they understand what it is and how it evolves. But then we also, key on certain areas. We share certain coercive controlling warning signs that happen at the onset in the beginning, which are oftentimes overlooked, by the teens or even adults, to tell you the truth. Because for one, the one that's really probably the quickest one that comes up is the abuser wanting to be with the victim all the time. Now, they play that off as, oh, I love you and I care about you so much, that's why I want to be with you, and that's how the victim sees it. What they don't understand is that is an exercise of power and control. They're trying to exercise power and control over that. And we also talk about verbal abuse, because that's where it usually begins. Verbally, they start putting them down, calling them names, maybe making snide remarks towards them, or humiliating them in front of others, embarrassing them, and just saying, just not really nice things, ugly things, as a matter of fact. And the thing I'll ask the kids is, what, if you're in a relationship with somebody that really cares about you, why would they ever in any way put you down under any circumstances? If you're in a relationship with someone that cares about you, they should be lifting you up, empowering you, and encouraging you, and be your cheering squad, so to speak. So those are healthy people in your life. Those people that are being good to you and just really encouraging you to go on and everything. Somebody that's not healthy will not. They will try to keep you down. And then you've got the emotional abuse, where they're tugging on the heartstrings of the victim, and oftentimes you'll have abusers play the victim, so to speak. And then you've got psychological abuse, manipulation, and usually after that is when the physical abuse comes in. So it could be quite a while before you'll see any physical abuse happen in a relationship, but in the meantime you've got all this verbal, emotional, psychological going on before that. And kind of getting back to the prevalence, of teen dating violence, the American Psychological Association in 2013 did a study of a little over 1,000, high schoolers, and they found that 41% of girls and 37% of boys report being victims in an abusive relationship. So there is definitely some prevalence there. And the thing I look at is if we had 41% of our girls and 37% of our boys with the measles, what would we have on our hands?
An epidemic.
Yes. What would we be doing? Quarantining, probably, getting vaccinations out there and everything. So this is definitely an issue that really needs to be dealt with and should never be taken lightly.
I think it's a scary one for parents just in general, just the idea of dating, your child dating someone, and you're trying to move beyond your child being a child and moving into adolescence and having the ability to make decisions, either going through adulthood or making decisions to have a partner, and having a healthy relationship. And so I know that in being a parent, it becomes really difficult in communicating, well, what should that look like, or even being sensitive to your child, because you want them to have a positive developmental experience without, mom berating on you in a sense.
Exactly.
But you have to have that healthy partnership and having that understanding. And so when we look at, I guess, teens, it's almost like teens helping teens, because I feel like maybe sometimes parents or families are probably not the ones to witness or recognize the abuse, because oftentimes we feel like our children are probably maybe they don't fall in that category. You become blinded. There are angels. So I think oftentimes it might be their peers. So when we talk to peers and how they should reach out and be supportive and concerned, what does that look like, and who would they reach out to? Same calling you, or would they help the victim to be able to find the resources and those kinds of things?
And that is actually a very good question, and that's something that we've included in our presentation and workshop, because one of the main questions out there is, how can a bystander help a victim? Because there's a couple points in times when Kaity was dealing with this abuse. He literally attacked her on 3 separate occasions in public, and all 3 times, well, actually the first 2 times, nobody came to her aid. Nobody tried to help her. Actually, all 3 times, nobody tried to help her. She had to get away. And I choose to believe that the majority of the people that were around, they just didn't know what to do without, number one, making the situation worse for her, but also themselves not getting hurt. And, the thing that we try to educate people on is, create a distraction. And there's all kinds of ways you can create a distraction in that general vicinity where it's going on. And somebody, go contact some administrator in the school, or law enforcement, or somebody that can come in and help. But get an adult to come in and get in the middle of it, not so much the student. It's better that way all the way around, so we don't have any a student getting hurt or anything. And creating a distraction, you could simply just get in the area and start hollering at somebody across the room really loud, just drawing attention, because what it does is it draws attention to that general area, and then all of a sudden the couple that's having the issue, they're on stage and they don't want to be there. So usually they'll stop, and that's the goal, that they stop. Now, me, myself, I, ask people to take it just one step further. Just take it one step further and go find somebody in authority and let them know what you saw and who you saw doing it. Because both of them need to be talked to. The victim needs to understand, this is inappropriate behavior. They should not be so disrespected or treated so badly. But the abuser also needs to understand, number one, there's laws against what they're doing. And number two, it's not right, and it's not going to be tolerated. And in doing that, and they should always be spoken to separately, never together, because you are not going to get anything out of that victim if the abuser is right there. Because see, the bottom line is one of those two could end up like Kaity, and that's the last thing any of us ever want.
I think it's, it certainly is very sensitive when you think about relationships, and so you don't want to butt into somebody's relationship in a sense. And I think as community members, or we just that's the path that we generally take. That's their business. But I think it's important for us to think a little bit outside of that, the importance of being community members and neighbors and watching out for each other, and knowing maybe when you've gone over the line a little bit, and trying to protect one another and helping each of the people involved, because you're certainly right, in the sense that there are two people involved, and how do you provide assistance to each of them, because you want the victim to have support, but you also want the other person to know maybe the right resources and being able to handle their anger or to deal with the situation, and where do you go to get those things. So when we talk about that, I know one of the things that came up in our conversation before was some of the things that you do in outreach, and we want to make sure that we get that to the community. So if the community were interested in having you in their school or wherever that might be, what does that look like when you do outreach?
Well, basically, if a school invites us in to do a presentation, now we can do our presentations in a couple of different ways. We can do it, take over health class for a day. We've gone down to schools, we've taken over health classes for a day, PE classes also, or we can do an assembly. Whatever, we work very well with the school. We have certain different links for our presentations that will fit into a traditional, length of a class. But like I said, we'll also do assemblies. Sometimes we do community, just like the Symposium that we work with, once a year. We'll do a community presentation. And, like I said, we start with, what an abusive relationship looks like, and then we go all the way through the red flags. We go through options to safely exit an abusive relationship. We talk about Kaity's Law, and then, what bystanders can do, how people can, help others, and then we also talk about the elements of a healthy relationship. So as much as we're telling them what shouldn't happen in a relationship, we want to give them the tools on how to have a healthy relationship and how simple it is to have a healthy relationship. It really is. And it's also very stress-free. It's wonderful having healthy relationships. So, and that's the thing. The key is education. When I've done presentations, I've had a lot of young people come up to me, boys and girls, and thank me for the presentation. They've written on our surveys, you've taught me how to be a better boyfriend or a better girlfriend, to give my partner space. And, so as much as, we've got victims in the audience, we also have people that, they have some areas to work on, so to speak. And it's helping them realize that. I think sometimes they know in their gut that maybe what they're doing is not right, but they don't know any better. So we basically give them the permission to treat somebody appropriately, and this is how it looks and how beautiful it is.
And I think what's so great about what Bobbi does is a lot of times, kids aren't getting that mentoring or that representation at home, and they do need that education, and it does take a village to raise a child, and especially in smaller communities like that's an advantage that we have here. We know each other, we work with each other, we can be a support system for one another. Getting the education in the schools is a very important concept, because parents aren't always going to be available to talk to their kids about this, and there needs to be a social movement in order to create change like this. And so education, how Bobbi had said, is the key. It is absolutely the key, and she is wonderful. I've worked with her on many projects, and she is a great source of information, and she is willing to provide as much service that any community would need to educate the community on this particular topic.
Well, I'm so grateful that the two of you could join us today. I think it's certainly important for us to communicate with the community about something that, maybe that we're not paying attention to. And maybe we can help a young person in our community, or even, an adult who might be dealing with these issues, and finding the resources. So thank you for joining us. And one of the things to look out for is the Victims' Rights Symposium happening in April 15th. 15th. And that'll allow you to get more information on this topic and other topics that you might need services or community services, or just to find out what's happening in the area of victim rights services. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.